Welcome to Hard Script.
She set her wine glass down like it was just another night. Chicken parmesan, half finished. Candle flickering in the center of the table. A playlist humming low in the background. We were supposed to be reconnecting, after weeks of tension, missed signals, and clipped conversations. Instead, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I need variety." She didn't say it with cruelty. She didn't even look angry. Just flat. Like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed in her head for days, and finally found the nerve to deliver. I stared at her for a second, waiting for the punchline. It never came. So I said the first thing that came to mind, calm as a still lake. "So do I." And then, I said nothing else. No follow-up. No, what does that mean? No bargaining. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew. This wasn't a conversation. It was a confession. And I wasn't about to be the man who begged to understand a woman who had already decided she was done being honest. She blinked once, twice, like she hadn't expected that. Like she thought I'd argue, plead, react, maybe even throw my fork down or storm off. But I didn't. I just kept eating. And in that silence, something shifted. Something irreversible. She filled the space with excuses, half-truths about how she'd been feeling boxed in lately, how she wasn't trying to hurt me, how this wasn't about anyone else. But that's the thing. It's always about someone else. You don't say you need variety unless you've already sampled the options. The rest of dinner passed in fragments. Her voice blurred in and out while I thought about every moment I'd put her first. Every small compromise. Every "it's fine" I swallowed to keep the peace. And here she was, telling me, on a random Thursday, that I wasn't enough for her anymore. But instead of losing it, I pulled back. Internally. Quietly. Because something inside me had already left the room. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, listening to her breathe beside me like nothing had happened. Her body warm. Her back turned. As if we were still fine. But the damage was done. And I wasn't going to scream about it. I was going to disappear from the inside out. No arguments. No breakdowns. Just strategy. She had no idea the game had changed. And I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. The next morning, she appeared just as she always did. Hair loosely tied, wearing a sweatshirt I recognized, the scent of her shampoo lingering in the air of our shared bedroom. She asked about plans for the weekend with that familiar tinged enthusiasm people reserve for routine. I answered simply, working. Not that I was, just a space-preserving statement. No invitation to something we had already outgrown. She paused, glanced at me, then shrugged lightly and moved on. There was no mistake, no anger, just a fading in of what used to be. Later, at the kitchen table, she cleared her throat and mentioned work frustrations. I poured my coffee silently, kept my gaze forward. That was the pivot. She expected engagement, support, maybe a joke. Instead, I offered none of that. She repeated herself, softer this time. I nodded, collected the cup, and retreated inward. That's what she couldn't unravel. She'd expected a reaction, not silence. By midday, I started the quiet exodus. Opened my own bank account online, transferred paychecks, created new passwords, logged out of shared accounts. Every one of those clicks was methodical, deliberate. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I needed to protect myself. When she got home that evening, she wore linen, as if ready for a dinner we'd never planned again. She smiled and asked about my day. I said it was fine. Her body language sagged just for a moment. Something registered in her eyes. I wasn't the man she thought I was. Crickets held more shock than confrontation ever could. She texted someone later that evening when I moved into the study to work. Later still, I saw a message asking if things were okay. She didn't show it, but I knew she was running out of words. That night, she came to bed with uncertainty in her steps. I turned away, mind already distant. In the dark, she whispered questions that never came to light. And I let the darkness speak for me. When words stop, guessing begins. She guessed a lot that week. But she never guessed silence could become the most devastating weapon. A few days passed. She kept pretending things were normal. Still brewed coffee in the morning. Still asked if I needed anything from the store. Still texted me memes she used to send when things were good. Nostalgia as a weapon. Familiarity as a leash. But I didn't bite. I answered only what needed answering. Nothing more. I stopped asking questions. I stopped filling silences. And that's when the cracks began to form inside her. She started to ask if I was okay more frequently. She lingered in doorways like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. And I let her drown in that uncertainty. Because once someone confesses they need variety, it's not your job to be their anchor anymore. It's your job to let go. That Thursday, she left her laptop open. Not in a dramatic way, just careless. Like she trusted me not to look. Like she believed I was still the man who respected her privacy, as if it were sacred. I used to be that man. I'm not anymore. It wasn't even hard. Just one click. The messages weren't explicit. They were worse than that. They were familiar. Little inside jokes. Midday check-ins. Photos of food with captions like, "Guess who made me this?" and "Next time I'll teach you how to cook it." She never sent me things like that. Not in months. One thread stood out. A name I didn't recognize. Josh. Casual. Too casual. The last message from him. Can't wait till the next little escape. Same time Friday. She replied, "You know I need it." She needed it. That word again. Variety. Escape. Need. I sat there, letting it sink in, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything I'd already felt. This wasn't boredom. This was a choice. A sustained, conscious decision to seek something else. Repeated. Hidden. Rationalized. So I closed the laptop gently. Didn't say a word. Didn't confront her. Instead, I took out my phone and started taking pictures of the messages. Not to send. Not to share. Just to keep. Receipts don't scream. They wait. And I'd learned how to wait better than anyone. That night, she curled up next to me again like nothing had changed. And I let her. Because sometimes the most effective revenge is nothing at all. Just silence and strategy. The next morning, I changed my alarm to vibrate. I started waking up before her and leaving without saying a word. No more breakfast at the table. No more driving her to work. No more updates on my day. I removed myself, one thread at a time, like unraveling a sweater she no longer cared to wear. I still slept in the same bed. Still shared the same space. But I was gone, and she could feel it, even if she couldn't name it. I stopped reacting. When she told me stories from work, I'd nod without processing them. When she asked if I wanted to watch something together, I'd say I was tired. When she reached out to touch me, I didn't flinch, but I didn't lean in, either. She didn't know how to handle that. Not for me. I was the constant. The calm. The one who always made things okay. But I wasn't making anything okay anymore. Not for her. And that started to rattle her. She began asking small questions that sounded casual, but weren't. "Everything good? You've been quiet lately. Are you mad at me?" I'd reply with just enough to keep her from spiraling, but not enough to comfort her. Not enough to give her control. Because comfort was what got us here. She needed variety. Now she could live with the version of me she didn't recognize. The one who didn't explain. The one who moved like smoke. Present, but impossible to hold. I started working later. Taking meetings off-site. Dinners alone. I kept it clean. No affairs. No lies. Just distance. Just boundaries she never thought I'd build. She tried to bring us back. Suggested a weekend trip. Ordered my favorite food. Even wore the perfume she knew I liked. But it was too late. Once you hear someone tell you that you're not enough, without screaming, without anger, but with cold honesty, you never unhear it. I didn't need revenge. I needed freedom. And I was claiming it in silence. She asked one night if I still loved her. I didn't answer. Just looked at her, then back at my laptop. Because that's what happens when you break something with your words. You don't get more words back. You get absence. She rolled over, the silence louder than anything I could have said. And I went to sleep like a man already gone. It started small. She asked if I wanted to go out Friday night. Said she made reservations. My favorite steakhouse, a place we hadn't been in months. I told her I already had plans. She asked, "With who?" I just smiled. It wasn't a lie. I did have plans. Just not with anyone she knew. A quiet dinner, alone. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to be in a space where I didn't have to decode double meanings in every sentence. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch in the dark, scrolling her phone like it might hold answers. But she didn't say anything. Not immediately. Later that night, she came to bed wearing something she hadn't worn in a long time. Subtle. Intentional. I turned off the light without a word. And that's when it started to break. The next morning, she asked for the Netflix login. I told her I'd updated all the passwords. Nothing dramatic. Just said it like I was reorganizing things. She froze for a second, asked, "Why would you change the passwords?" I said I wanted more control over my accounts. Simple, clean, non-confrontational. But she felt it. The lockout wasn't digital. It was emotional, and it was just the beginning. By midweek, her questions got sharper. She noticed the joint savings account wasn't there anymore. She checked our calendar and saw I'd removed shared events. She asked if something was wrong. I asked, "Do you want an honest answer or the one that makes you feel better?" She didn't reply. She tried to pivot, made dinner, set the table, played a playlist from our wedding. I sat down, ate, and left the table without a word. Not to be cruel, but to be clear. Because there's a kind of silence that speaks louder than rage. And I was fluent in it now. She stood in the hallway afterward, watching me pack a weekend bag. I told her I was going to see my brother. She said, "You didn't mention that." I said, "I don't have to anymore." There was panic in her eyes now. Real panic. The kind that doesn't come from an argument, but from realizing you're losing someone who's already halfway out the door and not leaving a trail behind. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even close it fast. I just walked out like it wasn't my house anymore. Because emotionally, it hadn't been for a long time. By the time I left for that weekend, I knew exactly what I was doing. It wasn't a getaway. It was a statement. A test. I wanted to see how long it would take for her to panic publicly, not just in our house, but outside it. The answer? Less than 48 hours. She posted a throwback photo of us with a vague caption about working through things. Then she shared a song lyric, something about being misunderstood. Passive, designed to pull sympathy without telling the truth. But the comments weren't what she expected. Her closest friend, Megan, replied, "Sometimes you lose what you don't value soon enough." Subtle, but not supportive. Another wrote, "Hope you're being honest with yourself first." That one stayed up for about 5 minutes before she deleted it. She texted me Sunday morning asking when I'd be home. I replied, "Monday." No heart, no follow-up. The silence was rotting her from the inside out. Monday morning, she was in the kitchen when I came in. She had makeup on, hair done, breakfast laid out like a peace treaty. I poured my coffee without looking at her. Sat down, scrolled my phone. She asked if we could talk. I told her, "I have work." And I left. By now, the world around her was changing. I'd quietly spoken with our mutual friends. Not with bitterness, but with precision. I let them draw their own conclusions. I mentioned she seemed distant lately, disconnected, that I'd been trying, but felt like I was the only one still in the relationship. I didn't badmouth her. I didn't need to. People connect the dots when you give them enough silence. Her cousin reached out to me, one she always thought was on her side. She asked if I was okay. Said she noticed something was off in the way my wife had been acting lately. I told her, some things don't need to be explained. And just like that, another crack formed in her foundation. She thought the people around us would see me as the one who gave up. But when your actions speak quietly and consistently, people listen. The more she tried to pretend things were fine, the more obvious it became they weren't. She was alone, surrounded by people she used to lean on. People who had started to shift their weight away from her. Not out of anger, just discomfort. And that's the worst kind of rejection. Not loud, not violent. Just the kind where everyone slowly stops looking at you the same and starts wondering what you're hiding. By the end of that week, her voice had changed. Gone was the confident tone she used to carry. Casual, self-assured, just a little dismissive. Now every word sounded careful, almost rehearsed. Like she was afraid to say the wrong thing. Like she already knew she'd lost control and was trying to find any handle left. She came home with groceries we didn't need. Cooked meals I didn't ask for. Folded my clothes that had sat untouched in the dryer. The routine she used to ignore was now her currency, her way back in. But I wasn't trading. I still spoke to her, but not in the way I used to. No warmth. No softness. Just facts. Schedules. Logistics. She noticed. She asked if I wanted to do something that weekend. Just us. Said we could drive to the cabin we hadn't visited in over a year. I said I had work. Then walked away. She texted me a few hours later. "Can we talk tonight?" I didn't reply. That night, she came into the bedroom and stood there in silence, waiting. I was scrolling through emails. Not hiding, not performing. Just uninterested. She said she felt like I was slipping away. I said nothing. Because I already had. The next day, she called her sister. I overheard it. She said I'd been cold, distant, said she didn't understand what changed, that she felt like a stranger in her own house. Her sister didn't rush to comfort her. She just asked one question. Did you do something you're not telling me? The pause after that told me everything. Later, she reached out to Megan again, the same friend who had posted that cryptic comment. Megan didn't answer. Then she messaged me. Can we please talk before this gets worse? I read it, let it sit, then locked my phone. Because when someone tells you they need variety, what they really mean is that they want someone to chase, to plead, to perform. I did none of that. Instead, I kept disappearing. I went out without telling her where, turned off location sharing, paid in cash, came home late, not to provoke, but to remind her that she no longer knew where I was, who I was, or what I was planning. Because unpredictability is a language she once used fluently, and now she was finally being spoken to in her own dialect. She just didn't like the way it sounded when it echoed back. It was a Saturday, quiet, cold, the kind of day that used to mean takeout and reruns. Now, the silence had weight. It pressed against the walls, breathed down her neck. I could feel her watching me all morning, waiting for a crack, a gesture, something to hold on to. But I gave her nothing. I read, made coffee, answered emails. Every move precise, calm, untouchable. By late afternoon, she snapped. She stood in the doorway of the living room and said, "We need to talk. Now." I didn't look up, just closed the laptop and set it aside. She launched into it, frustration, confusion, desperation all packed into one breathless storm. She asked what was happening to us, if I was seeing someone, if I even wanted to fix this. She threw in everything but an apology. I let her speak, let her wear herself out. Then, when she stopped, waiting for my reaction, I gave her the one thing she never expected. Stillness. I said nothing, just looked at her, expression flat. That silence hit harder than any accusation could have. She stepped closer, voice softer now, said she knew she made mistakes, that maybe she took things too far. That variety didn't mean she didn't love me, that she just felt bored. I didn't flinch, because bored is a luxury you only admit to when someone else is carrying the weight of the relationship. I'd carried it for years. She asked if we could start over, and I almost laughed, but didn't. Instead, I said something simple. You didn't want me. You wanted novelty. She looked stunned. I added, I'm not new. I'm just the man who never left. Then I stood up, walked past her, left the house again, like it meant nothing. Because it didn't. She thought confrontation would lead to reconciliation, that if she cornered me, I'd break open and we'd have some cinematic moment of honesty. But I wasn't playing that role anymore. There's no grand speech when the heart leaves. No argument when the mind is made up. Just distance. Just choices. And I had made mine long before she found the courage to ask. That night, she didn't come to bed. I didn't notice until morning. And by then, I was already making my next move. By Monday morning, the damage was irreversible. Not just between us. There wasn't anything left there to damage. But in her life. Her image. Her grip on the story she'd been telling herself and everyone else. I watched it unfold, quietly, like a slow-motion collapse. She overslept. Late for work. Again. Her boss called. She didn't pick up. Then came the messages from friends. Ones she used to drink wine with on Friday nights. The ones who used to cheer her on like she could do no wrong. Now, they were busy, distant, unavailable. She posted a photo. Just her, trying to look carefree. But it felt forced. Hollow. The kind of smile people scroll past because it screams, please notice me. Only a few likes. No comments. I could tell that hit her harder than she let on. The next night, she tried to talk again. I was in the guest room by then. That was permanent. No fight. No announcement. I just moved my things and left her space to realize what absence really felt like. She stood in the doorway again, asked if I was serious about leaving. I asked if she was serious about staying faithful when she told me she needed variety. She didn't have an answer. That was her pattern. Throw the match, then act surprised when it caught fire. Later that week, I removed her from the credit cards. Clean. Legal. Nothing petty. Just boundaries. She called the bank when she saw the change. They confirmed everything was in order. She cried that night. In the kitchen. I heard it. Didn't move. Because this wasn't cruelty. It was consequence. She'd spent years building a world where she was the center, where people orbited around her drama, her stories, her charm. But orbits break when gravity disappears. And I had stopped pulling. One of her coworkers, someone I barely knew, reached out to me. Said she seemed off. Asked if we were okay. I replied, she'll be fine. She's strong. But strength isn't tested when everything goes right. It's tested when no one is clapping anymore. When the audience leaves. When the mirror shows more than you're ready to see. And in that moment, she saw it all. The man she used to control now walked past her without looking. The friends she leaned on no longer responded. The life she thought she had no longer fit. And in the silence I left behind, she heard the one truth she had refused to face. I was gone, and I wasn't coming back. The final moment didn't look like a breakup. There wasn't shouting. No bags thrown out the door. No tears on the front porch or slammed car doors. It was quieter than that, and much colder. I came home one evening after work. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. She was sitting at the table, a cup of tea in front of her, both hands wrapped around it like it was the only warmth she had left. She looked tired, smaller somehow. I took off my jacket, set it down, walked past her like I always had the past few weeks. But she spoke. This time, her voice didn't shake. It wasn't desperate or dramatic. It was still. She asked me one question. Is there anything left to save? That moment, right there, is when I realized how far I'd already gone. I didn't feel anger or sadness. I didn't want to fix her or punish her or even comfort her. I just felt done. I looked at her, not through her, not with hate, just with clarity. I said no, no drama, no explanation, just a final, precise answer. She nodded. Just once. No argument. No begging. I turned, went to the bedroom, and picked up the last box I had packed days ago. My new place was already furnished. The key was in my pocket. I'd signed the lease last week. I left the garage door remote on the counter. Took one last look around. Not at her, but at the space. The silence. The ghost of who I used to be. And then I left. I didn't block her. I didn't write some final message. I didn't call friends to update them. I just stopped showing up where I was no longer respected. Weeks later, I heard from a mutual friend that she'd been asking about me. Not in the loud way she used to, just quietly. Like someone trying to trace footsteps in the snow, long after they've melted. I never responded. Because there was nothing to say. You don't explain to someone why you don't want to be disrespected. You just stop participating in it. She wanted variety. I gave her silence. And she never recovered from it. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.